report that.
I think what-
I was like, oh, someone else did.
So it's,
Yeah, well, it's,
we have to use
the
now.
plurality winner, concept is
No,
totally unfair, so,
Unmuted.
that's the only option that I know. I mean, there are all the other ones like,
Wait for it.
anyway, it's almost showtime. I thought that was a good sign that one of the James Monroe High Schools.
All right, it's 6 o'clock Verizon time. Call the meeting to order. May I get a roll call?
All right, and please help the person with the speech impediment if I mispronounce your name. So first up is Matthew Rowe,
Here.
Tamara Banks, Brett Bernice, Joe Burrito, John Castellanarian, Justin Chenault, Jacob Clay.
Here.
Jennifer Combs.
Here.
Micah Cunningham. Tara Durant. Patricia Exnation. Rupert Farley.
Here,
Glenn Goldsmith. Larry Gross.
Here.
Jaron Hayes.
Here.
Neil Holler.
Present.
Michael Hoyt. Travis King. Nicholas Witnowski.
Here.
David McLaughlin. Ann Palbakar.
Dave's usually online.
Ken Progue. James Powell.
Here.
Dustin Savage. Rodney Thomas. Okay, Mr. Chair, we have four.
Great, thank you. And I assume everyone has a copy of the agenda in front of them. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. If someone would like to put that out there.
this is Rupert, I'll move with the agenda.
Motion by Rupert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Neil. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Great. All right, approval of the minutes from the October meeting.
Staff has made a note of a correction on the October minutes, a question of who approved the September 14th minutes. It was a motion by Mr. Farley. It should have been recorded that Ann Oliver, sorry, I'm noted, made the second, not Mr. Gross. Correction.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes as fixed?
This is Rupert, I move to approve the minutes.
Okay,
Neil, second.
by Neil, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. All right, public comment time. Comments and questions from members of the public are welcome at this time. Staff will also read comments submitted by the public prior to the meeting. So is there anybody present that would like to, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to read a comment into the record. So you don't know me, I'm Hank Sharpenberg. I was unanimously reelected in June as the chairman of CTAC, only to be removed as a Stafford representative to CTAC 2 months later by 4 members of the Stafford Board of Supervisors for no stated reason, with the express implication that I was guilty of some type of misconduct. This removal from CTAC defied reason is I have served the citizens of Stafford County in multiple volunteer positions for 15 years with no hint of impropriety or malfeasance. 3 board members did not participate in this reprehensible farce of removal. Several FOIA requests from members of the local media and my attorney were made to the Stafford Board of Supervisors, the George Washington Regional Commission, and the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization concerning my removal. What was provided, it is apparent that numerous electronic communications were clearly deleted in violation of FOIA and others withheld. It was also clear that members of the policy committee and the FAMPO administrator were actively colluding to subvert the workings of CTAC and attack me personally. It is unconscionable that the Citizens Advisory Committee, whose mission is to provide citizens input to FAMPO, should be subjected to covert manipulation and disinformation, and the personal reputation of a member of that committee suffered damage in the process. I am publicly calling for the resignation of Ian Ellis, FAMPO Administrator, for acting to subvert the objectives of CTAC and failing to comply with the legal requirements that govern how FAMPO should be administered. If Mr. Ellis does not resign, I call upon the Administrator of the GWRC to remove him. Additionally, I will request that the Attorney General of the State of Virginia and the Virginia Secretary of Transportation initiate an investigation into the transportation function of GWRC as to how FAMPO conducts its operations and its obvious failure to comply with the applicable Virginia portions of the Freedom of Information Act. This concludes my formal statement.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to make a public comment? Is there anyone online that would like to make a public comment? Do we have any correspondence for public comment? Okay, I'll declare that public comment period closed. New business, the 2023 CTAC calendar. Did everyone get a copy of that? Or in the agenda here or in your email?
Maybe.
Did have one question about that because we do take a couple of months off.
Yes.
So yeah, do you want
My question is, that's actually a committee's decision of when they would like to take the months off. So rather than just assume that you would take, say, July off or December, I was leaving that open and provided all the applicable dates for the second Wednesday of each month.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Was policy take months off?
Yes, so currently policy takes the months of July and December off. In previous years, they've taken August off instead of July. So that's the reason why we present the full calendar.
It's good enough for policy, it's good enough for CTAC.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Certainly. I'll remove that the calendar eliminate the months of August and December from the schedule.
Is there a second for that? All right, second. Any other discussion?
Point of order.
Go ahead.
August and December or July and December to mimic?
He said August and December because the
Right.
policy committee does those months.
I thought they did July and
Do
December.
July
It-
and December.
Oh, I thought I
I
said
got
August.
confused. I did, but previously they've taken August off.
Oh, okay.
So, but this time they did July and
They-
December.
They have not set their calendar yet.
Is this something that maybe we would want to take a beat and wait to see this? But I guess we have to,
No.
we have to set something at least for July because we're not meeting in December, right?
Right now,
I mean, January.
there is assumption that it would be a July date that they do not currently have on their meeting for their policy committee
Okay.
materials.
Do you want to amend your motion to with that assumption in mind?
Maybe I misunderstood. Are you saying there will be a policy meeting in August?
Yes, there will be one in August. Right now, there's not one on the calendar in their proposed packet for July.
Yes, please amend it.
Okay, so this calendar, say for July and December, do you want to,
Second.
all right?
This one's gonna align with the policy committee.
At least with the idea of where they're going to end up
Okay.
because they haven't set their calendar yet.
Should they change their calendar, do we have the option to further amend?
Yes.
I would think so.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chair, who made the second for that motion? Mr. Gross?
Yes.
There's one thing that wasn't clear.
Go ahead.
Normally when we get a calendar, it looks rather like, it wasn't like that. We can tell if all of our meetings preceding or rather following tech was a little hard to do with the printout that we got. So do they?
I'll be glad to print it out for everybody and hand it out.
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Yes, we will be traditionally
Correct.
proceeding, although it's not always on the same week.
Not often.
Maybe like 1 week difference. So for example, in May, the TAC would be on the 1st, but because it's our second Wednesday, we would actually not meet till the 10th. So there's like
So we're following tech.
Okay. All right. 6B, adopt the updated informational helpful notes cheat sheet for CTAC members and public.
We do have, Mr. Farley, requested a couple of, edits to the document, under page 1, attend meetings, recommend no fewer than rather than no less than. Page 2, under, meeting procedures, a rewrite, an edit to chime in about how to best practice for chiming in during a conversation to be recognized by the chair by raising a hand. So if that goes to get the person's attention, ask him, may I chime in or can I chime in? Or also, the traditional expression is I move to approve or motion to approve. Either is acceptable, but we'll continue that and change on page 3, heading contact to contact. So it's more editorial.
Question about that.
Okay.
The word motion is a noun, is it not? And therefore, I motion to, it would be not grammatically correct. Am I
It would
wrong? Or
be-
what does Robert say?
It would be, I make a motion to.
Yes.
Or I move to.
Yes, that's what I would.
That's what I said.
I I noticed that you are a fellow grammar fan with less versus fewer, so.
That too, huh?
Yes, I did. My mother raised me correctly.
What?
My mother raised me correctly.
Is this an action item or this is just informational? We don't need to-
Because it's posted on your website, it's actually something that I would recommend that you approve because it is a public facing document that if the public wishes to know how you would like to proceed with your meetings in a shortened version rather than reading it through all of Robert's Rules of Order.
Perfectly understandable. Would someone like to make a motion or move to approve the updated health notes cheat sheet?
I haven't seen the updated version of it.
Can I make a motion with Mr. Farley's amendments?
Yeah.
Then I so move.
Motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, second. Further discussion? Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the motion is.
This is to adopt the updated helpful notes cheat sheet on the website.
Okay, what was the amendment to the?
It's not, oh, go ahead.
I have a list of corrections that Mr. Farley has provided.
Sorry.
It's an amendment to the cheat sheet, not an motion. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, staff reports.
Okay. Holly, can you
Yes.
position me? All right. First up, I have a quick synopsis of all right. So we got the VSL, also known as a update on the variable speed limit pilot project that's currently taking place on Interstate 95 between the Thornburg exit and north just past route, to exit 130, although the total project area extends beyond to 133. So this project is a pilot, but it was based on a corridor selection process that regularly identified incident-related congestion, hotspots, stop-and-go traffic, and high crash rates and incident delays. The purpose of VDOT's variable speed limit will be to harmonize traffic flow, and that's kind of going to be a key word for what VDOT is trying to do. So what they consider to be harmonized is to, one, reduce traffic crashes, reduce the stop-and-go conditions, and improve travel time reliability. In a very long roundabout way of saying it, what they're really looking for is to try to make that corridor consistently good rather than being occasionally excellent and often awful. So that's a little FAMPO's take on that. So, yes.
The last slide, the little typo, did you notice?
Way.
Yeah, right there. There's a way.
Was of saying.
Yes, okay. So along this, you will see the infrastructure that was placed out. This is down near the Thornburg exit. It includes using radar vehicle detectors to both determine the traffic flow and the speed, as well as kind of other electronic devices that will then allow the variable speed limits to both flash and change based on conditions that it's noting within the traffic flow. And when this system was initially generated, it actually started before June 21st, I believe, but they were also doing some runtime pre-testing with it. But true full kind of activation that you would see and kind of data recording, kind of watching what folks would do, they kind of let motorists have some learning time, happened in August. And so they started recording kind of the system activation times. And if you'll note that these predominantly kind of focus on the, I would say, end of the week travel patterns. So traditionally we see the system activate in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There is actually some use due to nighttime construction activating these, but it tends to have kind of a cluster through this. And the VDOT data actually shows that there's actually a slow kind of change to driver behavior happening. We're actually seeing fewer activations at those peak times as the system progressed through August. And August being one of the busiest traffic months of the year, that was actually something that they highlighted and noted within their presentation. Here it goes. So they looked at data for before and after. So before, most of their before data is actually from January through about April. And then their after data is from June 22nd to August 31st. And they were kind of focused on both determining the number of crashes as well as how the items related to crashes as well as the vehicle flow throughout. So the before traffic patterns actually had a lower daily vehicle miles traveled along this quarter. So there's actually fewer vehicles traveling the same set of, there's fewer vehicles traveling the same extent of the mileage on the system, sorry, for their before time period. And for their after time period, there's going to be actually more traffic on this. But what VDOT noted was that before the activation of the variable speed limits, despite the lower amount of traffic, the average delays for a crash decreased. There was actually a decrease in weather-related delays due to some of that data that was shown previously. There was actually an increase in work zone-related delays, as well as just a negligible increase in vehicle delays. So they're definitely seeing a significant decrease in the types of traffic congestion and delays as a result of a crash. So they mapped several year, sorry, I shouldn't say map, but they noted several year differences. And as you can see, there was a sharp increase in the number of crash counts for 2021. As well as for that initial before snapshot, before the variable speed limit came on board, that they saw another increase in the number of crashes for a given time. Since the variable speed limits came on, you've actually seen a moderate reduction in the number of crashes to actually revert back down to pre-2020 related crash counts. VDOT also noticed that this is where we're getting into speed harmonization. There has actually been a decrease or a fair amount decrease in the variability of the vehicles along this corridor driving at different speeds. So it's actually slowly clustering what I would say the slow traffic and the fast traffic closer together. You see kind of on the after graph to the right, you kind of see that nice little kind of curve graph coming up, and so you're actually seeing a small decrease in kind of that slower amount of delay on that before picture. But the speed differences between the left lane, the center lane, and the right lane are slowly coming together versus being a little bit more spread out as a result. So what we're seeing is more traffic is moving more closely kind of together in their traffic patterns throughout. So the conclusions that VDOT came from this initial thing, they're actually continuing to study the traffic as it's coming in. The system is working as designed. Drivers are reacting, so you're seeing a behavioral those driving through the corridors. Average speeds have decreased slightly when the transitional 45 and 55 mile an hour speed limits are posted. That's quietly a good thing because all of a sudden you're not having, one lane or travel going much faster than the other, and that can cause kind of points of conflict. Again, the speed differentials have changed, and the early crash results, I still say it's still early, show a very positive trend along this corridor. So this has been kind of an excerpt within your linked in the agenda. You can actually go through and see the full VDOT presentation. I've kind of tried to get the greatest hit slides on this. So if you have any questions, feel free. I can answer some of them. If not, I can also relay them to the folks at VDOT.
So I really appreciate you presenting this because I did bring this up at the last meeting, and it was just from, my admittedly ignorant observation, just from traveling on 95, either passing the traffic or being in the traffic, that felt like we were seeing the reduction in speed limit posted once you were already in the traffic. But seeing this explains things a lot more now. Could you go back a couple slides? I do have one, in fact, it's right here. So when it says before the 45 mile an hour variable speed limit, we're not talking about a difference of before implementation or after implementation.
Actually, I'm talking about before implementation and after implementation.
Okay, so
that's January through April data and June through end of August.
Okay, so my question is, for the before 45 mile an hour variable speed limit, this is taking into account traffic situations where, had it been in place, it would have been activated, like similar situations.
Correct.
That's what they're trying to say.
Yes,
okay,
that's accurate.
Gotcha. That was the one thing I had a question about.
Is this based on one particular spot?
I believe that this is through the corridor.
How are they measuring? They're measuring at certain spots, but how they're actually measuring the speed? Do you know?
Radar.
But they have radar for each lane? They have a gantry or?
No, they're gonna aggregate it across the same sensor probably, and they have multiple sensors along the
They
map.
installed sensors with each, if you go up the line, in addition to the signs that change, they have sensors installed along there that do have the sophistication to measure all three lanes independently as those sensors.
Somewhere on that pole, it's got three things, it's pointing at 3 lanes.
Go back to the picture.
Do we have, sorry, I'm looking at it right now. Do we have data on enforcement?
We do not have data on enforcement that I have readily available. So
Can we get data on? Because my question becomes, is this the variable speed limits, or is this a difference in enforcement? Is this a difference in visibility of enforcement? Everyone slows down when they see a cop on the side of the road. Like, is that what we're seeing here? Because and it's just a curiosity.
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I don't think they'll get enforcement data that quickly. I mean,
Okay.
that would be a fairly quick turnaround.
You'd have to FOIA it and get it from
Yeah.
the state police, and then the state police, you'd get the whole thing for Spotsylvania County from 118 all the way through I-95. Might be able to get tickets. I don't know where they put them in a database anymore to do it. And I'm saying this because I used to be in the state police in the late 90s in Spotsylvania and Stafford County. And, I'm sure it's all completely automated now, but, they still write paper tickets, 5 copies, press hard. So the idea that, okay, so back then there was maybe 2 spots you would sit on northbound I-95 from the 118 to the 130 to catch people with radar. And they were horrible spots because they could see you coming from a mile away. So you never sat there for this. Plus, no self-respecting state police officer who's writing radar tickets isn't going to sit inside of a VSL corridor. He's going to go to where people are going to go fast because people are going to pay attention to those signs. So
Well, people
But
still do
that-
go fast in the VFW.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, my question is what.
But you could see from the thing you were looking at, it,
Yeah,
the average speed is dropping apparently.
it goes up
So,
as you pass the, yeah.
You know, they're doing the cop's job for them, you know.
Question of behavior, because they are taking samples of driver behaviors over 3+ months, 2 to 3+ months, you're probably seeing that normalize within the data for when
We can
there's an
assume
officer.
level between before and after.
Yeah,
enforcement.
considering
Okay.
that if you
That's
have
the core of my
200,
question.
if they're registering 200,000 trips a day each day for several months, I would assume that that gets widely observed and absorbed into the data.
Okay.
I think that would be something that we'd like to see when it's available.
Yeah.
Issue. Might be a great idea for us to invite VDOT themselves to about their own technology, other than just kind of guess some of it. They're around and they're actually a member of this committee, if I recall, they have a staff that did it. So it'd be quite easy to do.
Do we feel that we need more information? Because if there are more questions, I'm happy to invite somebody to come over, but if you all feel satisfied, then it's up to you.
I mean, I'm curious. I just wonder what the end state of that would be.
Yeah.
Like, is it worth it if we don't really have a goal in mind?
Okay. Is this something that maybe we could feel out if they might be able to attend the January meeting?
Yes, I can work with them. We did actually provide an invite. They just did not have somebody available for.
Sure. Okay. Does anybody have any other comments or questions about this? All right, hearing none, let's move on to 7B. Accessibility options in the region, Healthy Generations Guide.
Okay. Back to the. So this was a request to kind of update committee members on kind of accessibility options throughout the region, and I'll try to frame this up in 2 different ways. One, I provided a list of ADA requirements for transportation providers within our area, which would be basically universal global wide. And I'm actually going to use this really bad slide to point an example. This is an ADA compliant slide. You can't read it. It's not very accessible, but it's technically compliant, particularly if somebody with a vision impairment asks for accommodations. I can actually sit here and read that as a option for that individual. So there's a whole host of rules and regulations for public transportation and to a lesser extent, including private transportation providers operating to the public. But that is something that is very different from what you would necessarily also consider accessible. This ADA is the minimum. Accessibility kind of goes beyond that. So Healthy Generations operating within our area actually has a excellent, and I mean a 26-page excellent resource guide that goes through the different providers, options, and services. Everything from how the Fredericksburg Go Transit operates to providers of wheelchair accessible and updated vans in the area. Technically, they will have to go to Northern Virginia or Richmond, but there's a option providing that. So they kind of give a rundown, and coming as a new person, relatively new person back into this region, this is actually a very great resource if anybody is interested. I was kind of hoping that this on the call, because my thing is, it truly does break things from general providers all the way down to what is non-emergency medical transport, which is more akin to you call the day before to require services, options and availability for taxi services, other transportation networks. Sometimes a big concern is better if there's hospital access, and they often have their own transportation options available that they operate, I would say, quasi-independently, as well as different options and availabilities for like rental car services and private sharing car. That's like something that WRC provides. So this resource is available online. I kind of was like, okay, we got 26 pages. My question would be, is there anybody on here today or online that has a specific question and would like to know more about these rather than me going through like all 26 pages and putting in that page? Yes.
Hi, this is
Thank you for-
Tamara. I actually am on the call. If anybody can hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, this is Tamara Banks. I am on the call. Thank you very much for bringing our transportation guide to everybody's attention. If they need a copy, I'm very more than happy to bring copies of that to anybody who would like it, or mail it out for anybody that would like it.
Okay, thank you.
This is really good. I wonder if someone is in need of it, how they navigate through all of this to find out where their sweet spot is that they can get help. But the other thing, I found myself wondering how big this program is, how many people are doing it? Is it 10 a day? Is it 100? Any idea how many people in our area using these services or need these services?
That,
Hello?
go ahead.
Yeah, Tamara.
Okay, I just want to make sure you can hear me because I'm on my cell phone. I can actually get you that information. I had a family emergency and I'm not actually home or near a computer. That's why I'm calling in. But I can get you the information about how many calls Healthy General Mobility Options get, how many people we serve, how many people we've had to turn down because we just didn't have enough time in the day or drivers. So I can definitely get you that information.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions on this topic? All right, great. Thank you. 7C, policy and TAC meeting summary and updates.
Okay, so the policy committee met on October 17th. Within their actions, they approved the TIP amendment for the Fredericksburg train station rehabilitation. In addition, they received a presentation from the Department of Energy and the Virginia Clean Cities about a funding opportunity. They chose not to endorse that request. And they received updates on the East-West Mobility Survey, particularly kind of updates to the changes that the first round of the transit study was presented. They provided comments as well as TAC, and so they received an update to kind of further fine-tune to make sure that they were accurately captured in their recommendations to the consultants. So they received a additional East-West survey update. They received a presentation about the vision document, the Vision 2075 that you received in the previous meeting. We talked about the French Summit and other general administrative items. For the TAC, they met this past Monday. Give me a second. And they had a very long meeting. So there is a host of consent agenda items present, including like for them, it was their meeting calendar that they broke out. But they were also presented on Safe Streets for All, SS4A, grant safety analysis. So that was an update for them of kind of what VDOT and the application was going in the initial kind of footwork for where the crash locations and methodology was happening. They received updates on the congestion mitigation, air quality, and surface transportation block grant funding available, both for active projects and discussed as set aside to allow for local planning. They received another update, actually a very similar update for the East-West Mobility report for the transit study, as well as a more in-depth update for the road and bicycle report. So the roadway report was provided as an update to TAC. And finally, the TAC also moved to endorse the Phase 2 transit report as amended based on their feedback. And that should do it. They also were endorsing a letter to Office Intermodal Planning and Investment about the economic development criteria for the Smart Scale application, and then an update on the funding for commuter lot safety. So that will wrap up what those two groups were presented. Are there any questions to about those meetings.
One question on the east-west mobility update. Was that an extensive discussion that they had on that?
The TAC, they received a fairly extensive report, particularly for the roadway section.
Right.
The transit was a little bit more of an update on the kind of final recommendation.
Right. They did get into some details on the roadway.
Yes, correct.
Well, we're touching on 7D now, so we can just move into that.
Okay.
Is anything additional?
So yeah, so
Jumping ahead.
you actually get to see a condensed version of this evening. So we have the draft East-West Mobility Study roadway report is now available, and we'll look to go before public comment, as well as the transit report, which is slowly working on its way of being finalized. Quick synopsis of that. The high capacity transit route has basically determined its endpoints is roughly at the Spotsylvania Town Center, precise location to be determined, and working its way across Cowan to the hospital area for a quick detour back to closer to the Fredericksburg Transit Center and the university before hitting its way down to the VRE station downtown. That has been kind of the finalized proposed route. Granted, this is just a planning thing. It's not a proposal for this actual service starting anytime soon, but this is what the consultants are recommending. The multi-use path near the Leland station is looking to go through kind of a follow along through some easements along the creek, water and sewer, as well as closer to the Stafford Civil War Park in that location. They made a recommendation for the Stafford Transit Center to be where the current parking lot is, closest to Interstate 95, as well as kind of proposed routes for the Spotsylvania multi-use path connecting Germanna and the VRE station, as well as, I believe, routes kind of down from the north from, was it Benchmark Road?
Yeah.
So, and they've kind of finalized those routes. So that would be the modifications that they proposed. The biggest modifications are mostly between the Brooks Station one and the east-west, and the high capacity transit route and Stafford bus location. The multi-use paths in Spotsylvania have pretty much remained more or less unchanged since the initial review.
Okay, and for the high capacity route, because I know there was a lot of questions about this during the policy committee meeting. This particular recommendation here does not include the extension out to Salem Church, and so it doesn't have the dedicated lanes on Route 3.
Correct. Yes.
This is all just using the same surface lanes that exist today.
And
Back and forth across all the main drags.
But it has the advantages of some priority at stoplights.
Right.
Lanes that can get them in front of the queue. I mean, this is, I got really excited about this during the meeting, and because it's everything you don't have in most transit, and like here, the bus never is there when I need them. These are going to be regularly running buses. They're going to come back and be quick. I mean, it's the service that would be the model that we hope will grow in this area. So it's
right.
Great initiative.
Exactly. To your point, it does have the added advantage that if a light is green and it starts to become that stagnant green, it usually would turn red for any other car or Fred bus, then they would get a green light, and so they would have the priority to continue on. And I believe there would be 6 buses that would be part of this circuit. Okay. So 6 buses on that circuit with priority.
So what does that schedule look like? Just
you're looking at 15-minute headways, 15 minutes between buses throughout kind of the peak times. It drops off a little bit, I believe, on weekends, but
How many minutes between?
15 minutes.
15.
what's the thought process on, I mean, why weekends? Why dropping off on weekends?
Mostly probably because of volume demands. Probably lack more.
Okay. Because I'm thinking, someone living in Stafford, I'd rather park at Spotsy Town Center and then go downtown using that bus. But if I'm doing that, I'm doing it on a weekend.
Sorry to speak behind you, but I say drops off talking about instead of 15 minutes, having it every 30 minutes.
Okay.
Right throughout the whole Sunday, right throughout the whole Saturday, which you don't.
Right.
So it's a very full schedule right through this week, but then the whole peak times on the weekend.
Anything about the hours of operation?
Uh,
Will you be able to
It's in the
go from downtown to the mall and have dinner and a movie and come home on the bus?
The bus would go till, you know about what they call the span of service. I haven't memorized it. It's in the report and it goes to at least 9 at night.
I want
We're
to
not
say it's
picking you up, not
14
picking
hours
you up.
first.
Okay, so about 7-ish to 9-ish. Okay.
I couldn't catch the
Yeah,
answer.
it does.
Ian's too far from the microphone.
Sorry, it goes to about 9 p.m., but it's not the same on the weekend as it is on the weekdays, and it starts quite early in the morning. So it's not, it's more than 12 hours of service during the day. It's quite a long service so that you can use it in the evenings and on the weekends. And the reason I know that is because in order to get the federal funding, you have to have a bus every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes on the weekend, and you have to have service from early in the morning all the way through to the evening. They don't set a specific time, but the amount of hours you operate is set. The amount of frequency that your bus has to operate is set. Otherwise, you don't get the funding. So you do have to have all of those facilities as part of the application for the funding.
Thanks.
Is this DOT funding and is it,
It's federal FTA funding.
okay, and it's continual or like a grant to get started and then,
There's more than one set of funding. There's a thing called New Starts, I believe it's called, program, which sets up the system, helps you to get the funding to build the infrastructure, the fancy bus stations, and purchase the equipment and all of that kind of thing. Then there's also a grant for operational funding. And the New Starts program, I think, sets it up for a couple of years before would need to incorporate that into your funding for your general transit system. And the proposal is that if we go ahead with something like this, that Fred would operate it, presumably because it's designed to integrate with the Fred system, so that you can get off this bus and get onto a different Fred bus if you want to go to somewhere other than that route, right?
interact with the rest of the other transit
The
stuff
whole
around.
network has to connect.
Spotsy and Fredericksburg City would be the main funders of that, and would that eventually, potentially, somehow, some way, but then I assume the transition of that grant federal funding would occur through the FAMPO GWRC policy committee mechanisms to figure that out?
No, the operator would be in charge. So FAMPO doesn't operate buses ever. So FAMPO would assist with a funding application to set the system up, to get the funding for the infrastructure, or that kind of thing. But the ownership and operations would be with the transit operator, which we are assuming is going to be Fred Transit, because we've included them in the discussions this far in terms of the design and all of that. So Fred,
And that's the guys that do buses now.
yes,
Okay.
Fred Transit who run the current bus system, they would run this as their sort of high-line, frequent backbone route, but then it connects to all the other routes so that you have a network of transit, not just one route. But this is meant to be a prototype or a pilot route at a much higher frequency, bigger buses,
Is there a,
all the other stuff. And if it works, the operator, who would presumably be FXBG or FXB Go, formerly Fred Transit, would then be able to request a new route in addition to this one. So perhaps one that goes to Massaponax, or one that goes down Lafayette Boulevard, or one that goes up to Stafford. This is meant to be the first route to test, to see whether there's enough demand, whether people like it, and then they could add other routes if it is successful.
has your GIS guy done the overlay for the connecting existing routes too for this main one, or are they not?
So we haven't asked them to do that, and the simple reason for that is that Fred Transit has just commenced their own transit strategic plan, and that transit strategic plan is redesigning the Fred network. So the point.
Oh, well, I guess because they could go different places. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the three key points: the train station, the Fred Transit Center on US 1, And the Spotsylvania Town Centre are three key places where you could get off and get onto the rest of the Fred network. So they will be sure to connect at points like that. But the network that they have right now is going to change. So it might not go down exactly the same streets that they do now. And we leave it to Fred to design their own network.
There really is a lot of opportunity for improving efficiency in the system with this, because, you know, it's, if you're stopping at the transit station, if you have to do a transfer, oftentimes you might be waiting a half hour after getting off of one bus before getting the next bus. With this loop like this, then you're almost like taking the transit hub and kind of stretching it out and adding more possibilities for connecting to other buses. So that would be, and then they'll have to take another look at what Fred bus is going where. Any other comments or questions?
What's cost in terms to the user?
It's within the transit report. I want to say it's going to cost between $6 to $11 or $13 a trip. Is that correct?
No. You're correct about the cost to operate.
Yes.
The question was the cost to the user. And
Okay.
the answer to that is we can't tell you, because Fred Transit would set that cost in conjunction with their funders and the FTA. And remember that Fred Transit is currently free. You get on Fred bus, it's free. And so this may also be free if it's integrated into that system. So we can't set fare policy at FAMPO. We set infrastructure and route designs, and then we hand it to Fred, and Fred will then decide what sort of a ticket price they would need to charge, or whether they're going to incorporate it into their fare free system. We don't know. But it costs $6 or so per ticket to operate.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we move on to 8A. Does anybody have? I'm skipping ahead. I'm skipping ahead. Sorry.
There's more to put back.
Both back.
Science, come on, Chip.
Oh, battery's getting weak in this thing. Okay, so in addition to the transit study, there's a rotary report study. And in the initial phase of the study, it identifies specific corridors that receive additional attention to kind of look to see, okay, within this east-west corridor, so when they're looking at this and when they're providing kind of their projections and options and recommendations, they're assuming that if we take all the improvements that we've kind of laid out in our constrained long-range plan, say, okay, everything that we say we're already going to build, widening lanes and X locations and whatnot, let's go ahead and model out what we think the travel volumes are going to be for those and say, okay, all these roads still working the way they should. So when they're identifying these corridors, and I'll give a great example to potentially look at, say, Butler Road for improvement. Right now it's 2 lanes. In our plans, we've already said we're going to widen it to 4 lanes. And so they're going to look at whether or not those roads are congested or not by the time we're looking at 2050. So they've identified several key corridors that they did a deep dive on. They actually did a full system kind of focused on those 13 corridors. Their key findings is looking at if we build everything, and as time goes on, we're going to still have significant congestion within the region. The congestion is going to be the highest where there's a high degree of automobile-oriented commercial activities, aka shopping centers, along the I-95 corridor. East-west traffic is also going to be affected by north-south challenges. So there's a network issue within our region that says if you want to go east-west, first you're going to have to go north-south, at least in some point in time, to maintain an east-west kind of direction. So if you're coming in, going east on 17 in Stafford, and you want to keep going that direction, technically to get back onto 17, you're going to have to drop down on 95 or Route 1 to actually take 17 west out through Stafford. So you have that, you have the presence of congestions where if we widen, we're still going to have traffic on those widening arteries. So other suggestions that they're looking at is the options for parallel routes. So if you need X many lanes running east-west, you can put 10 lanes all on one corridor, or you could put 4 lanes on one road, 4 lanes on another road, and 2 lanes on another road to get to those 10 lanes as well. You might be looking at access management items. So it might be an item where you need to add or remove access to facilities. And primarily develop a larger grid network, so you have more options in it. And they've slowly broken up a lot of the road into two different kind of items. One is regional projects that say if you do a certain number of things, you're going to see regional congestion either decrease or stay flat at the end of it. Or if it's a specific corridor, means if you make improvements to this one specific corridor, that corridor improves, but the network around it will not. So it'll still do that. So the recommended approach kind of focuses on these high-level estimates. Again, this is where kind of I preface this: condition impacts when measured regionally. And so you have these considerations going into this thing. So they pulled out land use that says, hey, yeah, land use has an impact on congestion. So their recommended regional projects included one, a Western network. This was identifying a road connection opportunities west of 95 that would connect kind of existing roadways that aren't currently connected. So Centerport expansion, Enon, and Truslow, kind of connecting a couple different road projects in there. They actually made this recommendation independently to look at the options for a new Rappahannock River crossing west of 95. They said that there's the potential for a new interchange at the VA Welcome Center, the 191 mile post, as well as Harrisonville Road I-95 connection. These four things offered benefits kind of across region, across multiple corridors. So this wasn't just it'll improve traffic in one location. It'll make improvements kind of within the greater network around it. And for local projects, they identified other roads that would likely need to be widened to handle future traffic volumes. So Courthouse Road in Stafford would have to be required to be widened to 6 lanes to kind of absorb future traffic demands. Warrenton Road, you might actually have to convert through lanes, turn lanes into through lanes to accommodate traffic. And you see kind of heavy widening. And this is where kind of some more unique ones with like Cowan Boulevard there. Actually, they kind of looked at it and say, hey, if you're going to accommodate traffic through our current processes, that would be something that would require widening to 6 lanes to get to accommodate the traffic that they're expecting. So you see kind of all of our roads kind of continue to grow feature. So again, back to the long-term priorities, it's like they kind of came back and said, we really do need a north-south connector to help our east-west connectivity. So that's why you see that Western network. There needs to be a kind of a network of connected roads west of 95. And the more that we can probably do this is the more it would actually reduce a lot of congestion within our existing roadways. So
Go back one, I'm sorry.
yes.
These projections, do they include the induced traffic and the induced sprawl that these projects are going to induce?
Yes, I
We
do.
can use population projections that are already hand.
Aren't we used?
The travel demand model, the VDOT travel demand model does not. Effects on housing and land use after does use the planned and currently existing housing and business premises that are either already built or are known and coded into the model as being planned to predict what the impact of that land use is going to be on the traffic. But it doesn't do it in reverse. It doesn't say, well, after you build these roads, how many more housing units will be built as a result of that. The model, I don't think, can do that. It doesn't.
If I'm understanding your answer correctly, this whole study is bogus.
Well,
we're good. We're getting a projections of estimates of congestion relief that have nothing to do with the situation that'll exist as a result of the congestion relief.
I think your comment is an interesting one. The models that I know of that are available in the United States today do not accurately predict induced demand, which is what you want to do. And it's a very important issue because there is induced demand.
I would say.
The trouble is we don't yet have a model that is readily available that can predict that. So,
we can get to the moon, but we can't do that.
I mean, I think that in time that will be developed, but right now I can't go to the consultants and say, can you give me an estimate of what the impacts will be on real estate in terms of induced.
You said in the United States. Are you aware of one from? Okay.
I studied planning in the United States, so I'm
Okay,
familiar
all
with
right. Just making sure you're not bringing something from
Not
South
saying
Africa.
that Britain or Germany or Japan doesn't have a secret thing that we don't know. Just saying that what I know of that's available in the United States, there isn't an automated artificial intelligence system floating around yet that can predict urban sprawl. There's some common sense stuff from various writers and that kind of thing, but there isn't a model, an electronic model that'll be.
William Gibson. Dave.
And I was going to say, kind of in support of what you said, and not in disagreement. At the meeting we had was the first time, because I'm on the stakeholders, and it was the first time that we got this, and it was in front of it. That's why I asked about the TAC. You know, it was transportation planners from Stafford and Fredericksburg, and they asked some really tough questions, and even Stephen from PDOT. So part of it, how does some of these recommendations going to fit in with the master planning that Stafford is doing right now, and they're updating. So there's some of that, and that talks about we talked about land use, just like you suggested. So that some of the other things were, okay, it says on there, oh, you know, widen Garrisonville Road by, you know, 2. So I forget who brought it up, but he says, who's going to pay to acquire all that commercial property? I mean, let's start
at the other end, Dave. And that was
Steffanaga all the way to I-95.
year.
It's like, so the costs that were presented were questioned. So I was hoping that, and I didn't get to watch the trip to see how they were going to actually address some of those issues, because there's really a lot to go. But this was the initial presentation. You know, it's not something we dismissed, but it does have some work to do. Fair way to put it, would you say?
Actually, right, the person who raised that was Alex Ozier.
Yeah, Alex, that's right.
Chairman, if I could just make
Go for it.
one comment. Actually, that conversation was really exciting.
It was very exciting.
And it was very exciting because people for the first time started to say, well, let's talk about this.
Yeah, it was.
We're pretending like we just built another 55 lanes onto everything and we've solved everything. And as you know, we can't do that because we don't have the money and we can't bulldoze everybody's shop front down because we have to widen Garrisonville Road to 8 lanes. And so that particular discussion was really important. And if you want to, if you want to ask my opinion of what FAMPO should do, because FAMPO is not a jurisdiction, right? We can't come and build things in anybody's jurisdiction. We suggest, and these studies are suggestions. And one of the things that is very clear in the study is that if we do nothing, we're going to end up in traffic hell, what somebody called Carmageddon, in 2050. Because we're not there already. Well, the model tells us the model tells us that it's going to be markedly worse because you've got a 22% population growth rate in Stafford, you've got a 15% population growth rate in Fredericksburg, and you've got a 15% population growth rate in Spotsylvania, and that is collectively the second highest growth rate in the state of Virginia. I think it's Loudoun County up there has got the highest.
But we don't know how much of that population growth has been induced by our projects like this, do we?
For the I-95. However, one of the things to add to that is, and this is an aside, so I can't get too far down this rabbit hole, but the cost of housing here relative to DC is partly what's inducing the demand, not necessarily the roads. the cost of housing induces the demand, then you build some roads, then more people come because the housing is still less expensive, right? So the housing cost is a big part of this. So if you want to know my view on what should be done, FAMPO, one of its main jobs is to decide on policy. That's why we exist. We exist to decide what's the right policy to integrate all of this and make transportation work. And for the first time I saw in that meeting, people stop hiding behind their veils and start to say, well, this is the big problem and we can't just build all these roads. There are all these problems. And for the first time, they started saying, well, we've got to trade off one thing against another. And one of the things you've got to trade off is, where do you put your new housing? You can't have, as we have now, zoning, what do you call those boards? Zoning boards in the different jurisdictions, independent of each other, independent of the transportation planning people, make up their mind about where they're going to allow housing, where they're going to allow factories, where they're going to allow warehouses. And there's no connection with the transportation people who have to then try to make the transportation system work after that's all built, right? What you have to do is try to take the big picture, look at this and go, well, we better not put that new housing 4,000 miles away from where all your transportation network is, because someone's going to have to pay for all the transportation stuff that's got to be built to make that work, right? The more houses you build far down Route 3, the more you're going to have to widen Route 3, upgrade it, put buses on it, put something on it, because you can't just keep doing that. You can't build houses with this hand and build transportation with that hand, and neither hand knows what the other one's doing. Have to integrate it. That's one of the problems.
One way to do that would be to require every development that comes down the pike to pay their own way for transportation.
All of those questions are policy, and this is
sorry.
a fantastic discussion. Those are policy questions, and that we are the policy committee, actually.
Who's making the connection to the boards?
No one,
What you just made.
no one is, and that's
Right, so this, you're putting a lot on top. This is your study, right? This is where you came in. This was your first thing you proposed as East-West Mobility Study, right?
Yeah.
So
So what the study is showing is the set of problems we presented to them.
it's starting to thinking
Consultants.
heads, right?
And gave us the solutions. We don't like some of their solutions. Good, because if you like all of them, that's people. But we don't like some of their solutions. So now what are we going to do? Fold our hands and do nothing? That would be a disaster, because the model tells us that in 2050 we won't be able to drive anywhere because it'll just be gridlock, particularly during peak hour. It'll be gridlock, right? So therefore you have to do something. Now the discussion, and feel free to say whatever you want, but the discussion is, what do we do? And it's a whole combination of things. It's land use, where you put stuff. It's how much and what kind of transit offerings do you offer? It's one of the problems that they point out in this report is that there are gaps in the road grid network. So one solution among these is
Interparcel connections.
Sorry?
You're talking about interparcel connections?
No, well, some,
Not only.
you know, for example, Garrisonville Road, if you don't do other things, you're going to have to widen Garrisonville to 8 lanes.
South and north of it. That's the regional.
So,
Right, yeah.
so the question is there another way of building a road grid that does not require us to have these 8-lane highways in the middle of lanes?
Spread out the traffic on the main
Sometimes
artery.
we've got to have other options. One option is transit. One option is build another road, smaller road, that can take some traffic in a different direction. There are multiple things that have to come together to prevent us having to widen Garrisonville Road to 8 lanes. But doing nothing is not one of those things.
Did anyone in any of this discussion suggested what I just suggested?
Which was?
Which was get the developers to pay for the transit.
Yeah, but then the developers will come and then the growth stops.
Every detail of what should be done. They started this discussion, but the meeting had gone on for 2 hours already, so we didn't get into solving all of the problems. this is gonna go to the policy committee, who I assume are gonna have the same shock and horror. And I am hoping, I'm really hoping that that triggers a conversation. One of the things that was proposed to the policy committee is that you have a workshop on congestion and get some experts
Go.
from outside.
Yeah.
Some experts from outside are not tied to the local politics to just talk about what they know about congestion, how you can reduce congestion, what are the other alternatives to building millions of highways, etc. Right? So that's one thing. The second thing is we started this vision document. And the idea is to look at the future and say, well, what kind of future do we want? Because if we don't have a vision, we're going to incrementally keep widening every damn road that gets congested. And that is, you know, long-term and sustainable. I'm not, however, one of those people who say you can solve every problem with transit, and I'm not one of those people who say you can't ever build another new road. I'm not one of those. I believe that there are a combination of solutions to these problems, including what I just showed you. You said that you blame me for this one, so I hope you blame me for the other one as well.
Blame on this, your thing.
Where I'm showing that you need a high capacity, fast transit route in the core, where you've got all the shops, the university, the hospital, the train stations, lots of people living, because then it alleviates some of the traffic because you move lots of people. The facts, and I'll close with this because I've been talking too long, but the facts are that transit of the capacity of the current Fred routes, one bus an hour, one small bus an hour, does not really alleviate congestion. You're moving too few people, which is why I'm pushing for these more frequent, bigger buses to move more people, but you can't put those in rural areas because there are not enough people there to fill the bus. So I'm pushing for a BRT type high capacity transit route in the core where you've got the density, where you've got the people, where you've got the businesses, so that it will work. The buses will have people on them, not half empty or completely empty buses, because that helps. It's one tool in the toolbox, but it's not the tool you can use in the more rural parts of, say, Spotsylvania County, because there are not enough people to ride a big bus like that. So you've got to find the solutions that fit, and it's a box of solutions. One of them being an alternative road, which they suggest to some of these other roads, to build a grid, because a grid is what gives you better solutions than a wide highway of 16 lanes.
All right, Nick, I think I saw your hand up earlier. Did you have a comment or question?
I forgot.
Okay. Dave.
Just 20 seconds. Is the meeting, that meeting recorded and available like these meetings are, that we could see? I mean, I've been in this a while, and I learned so much from the meeting. The discussions were really great to have. And there seems to be a lot of interest. Go, have a couple of beers and sit down and watch it, because it was a long meeting, but I was happy it was long because we had covered so much. So you might consider looking at that video.
The policy or the tech?
No, it's the actual stakeholders. It was the East-West stakeholders group.
We don't always record them. This time we actually did because we wanted to capture people's comments. But we'll have to get.
Might be just limited release to the committee, maybe, and not if you want, but I don't know. It was,
Totally can show you where it is on our FAMPO website.
I mean, even
Right.
as
Yeah, if we
as
could
new
just
members,
provided
you
the link.
learn something just from hearing the discussions.
Yeah. Rupert?
I was trying to find out if in any of these discussions, I think I've determined that no one's talked about going to Richmond and changing the impact fee laws so that we can
This was just the first presentation of the study.
There was plenty of talk about bonding roads.
Was
There
not.
was no talk about impact fees preventing us. Okay, was there any talk? Okay,
Presentation.
got that much established. Was there any talk about congestion pricing getting us out of this? No.
This is not.
Right, we can
This
do
is-
that.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it's not going to be discussed,
We're
but
doing exactly the same thing, maybe not quite exactly, but at least we've got one transit route in the mix.
Yeah.
But we're doing the same darn thing that we've been doing for the last 60 or 70 years, trying to pave our way out of congestion. It hasn't worked for decades, and we don't expect it to work anymore, and just making matters
Well, if anything, hopefully that the road report serves as sort of a fork in the road of, are we going to go the route where we have a well-integrated transportation network that, it's all across the board, road, rail, bus service, bike paths, or do we go and be like Houston, Texas,
So I remembered my question.
Okay, go ahead.
And I forgive, I probably should be more familiar with this, but looking at the power structure of who can actually enact policy. Are we limited to just the county boards of supervisors? Because my concern is, like, I look at Rupert's suggestion of the changing the fee structure. Now, I personally like that as well, but I think there are political concerns there that would prevent, boards of supervisors from approving such an action. Is there a power structure, some group that has power over decision making over what approach we take that is non-elected?
Thanks.
The kind of proposal that Rupert is talking about, I believe, and I stand corrected, but I believe would require the State House in Virginia to take action.
Okay.
FAMPO would not be able to implement it, and I don't believe the localities on their own would be able to do it. I think Richmond would have to
Yes.
do legislation
Yes.
because currently it's not available as an option.
Okay.
What FAMPO can do, send a legislative committee to Richmond to argue this case. And what FAMPO can also do is they can send a legislative committee to DC to argue us the permission for the freedom to use congestion pricing.
You could do the same
This-
thing.
Neither one of these, anybody wants to touch with a 10-foot pole during the whole time that I've been here. I hope things are changing.
So, I mean, I have also proposed some, I don't know if I should really say that here, but one of the things that I have suggested is that we also need a regional transportation authority. Policy committee members are not currently in favor of that. So I cannot represent FAMPO and say that that's what we should do because I don't set policy.
How would that help? A regional transportation authority making the same mistakes we've been making for the last 60 years?
Well, one of the things that the Richmond Transportation Authority does is to fund transit with the Transportation Authority, right? At the moment, funding is very limited for transit, and Fred has to get a lot of their funding from the federal government because they don't, because that's one of the only
We're
places.
squandering it all on projects like this.
Well, these projects are not approved. These are going out for public comment. Even the transit one is not yet approved. So this is 2 reports. The transit report is almost done. We're hoping that will get approved on the 28th by the policy committee. The roadway report, this is the proposals of the consultants. It hasn't had public comment yet. It hasn't had your comment yet, which we're hoping we will send in. It will be refined again, and it will then come back for approval. But remember, we set them a specific goal in these 2 reports. They've delivered on what we asked them to do. We don't like, and even people who are very pro roadways are not going to like a number of these proposals for some of the reasons that you've all just talked about. And I'm presuming I'm really hoping it's going to provoke a policy discussion for the first time rather than fighting about who gets the $5 to spend on their sidewalk. We will actually have a policy discussion about policy and what the right policy is to solve the future congestion problem, which is, I think, what all of our committees, especially the policy committee that's called the policy committee, should do. And I'm encouraging them, and I will in the meeting encourage them to do it, because I don't think anyone's going to vote for widening Garrisonville Road to 8 lanes. However, that's the implication of what happens if you do nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, what is the something else? And that's a policy discussion, because we can, as planners, put on the table 5 different policy options. But ultimately, people in leadership have to make a decision about which of those things to implement. And as you know, FAMPO ultimately doesn't implement it. FAMPO can make funding available, but that's about it. It's up to localities to decide which projects to implement, not FAMPO. And that's one of the problems about our committees. People think if they come here, they can influence what the localities are going to do. It works the other way around. The localities, we feed them some ideas, but they decide often completely different things. They decide what is important to them and then come and ask us for funding. So coming to FAMPO to think you're going to tell your county what to do through FAMPO is not going to work, because FAMPO doesn't tell the localities what to do. We assist them, advise. So sometimes we advise and say we don't think that's a good idea, but at the end of the day, if they vote for it, FAMPO is not the authority.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it.
All right. Are we on 8A now, or I believe we had transit report optional endorsement, but that we already kind of talked about that. That's at the policy committee on the 28th, which has been moved for anybody that's interested in that. It's not its usual time because that's a joint meeting, right? That's a joint meeting of
To WRC as
Right.
well as.
Okay.
Committee.
8A, report of problems. Does anybody have a to report? Problem-free region. Wonderful. Member reports, topics of interest, or anything else? Okay, hearing none, we are on our second public comment. Comments and questions from members of the public are welcome at this time. If anybody else here that would like to make a public comment, go ahead. Oh.
I'm Fran Larkins, and I served for about 5 years here on CTAC. So it's been a while since I've been on it. So thank you, Rupert, for serving for this long. I'm very, very interested in the suggestions or the report that just came out. I was hoping you might have copies of it printed, but if you don't, I'll figure out a way to do it at home, because I'm going to want to follow it very, very closely. The one that I have, the one that I live in Celebrate, which is on the Parkway. Okay, it's on the Parkway that I think the report shows taking the end of the Parkway to go down and make that the access to the bridge to go across and go into Center Park Parkway, or go over into Central Park. What I would like to highly the problems that we see so far with that are that if you make that road go across the river from off of Celebrate Parkway, the trucks are going to find it. And so we're going to have 17, they're going to come down 17. It is a 4-lane highway. It's divided. It's a beautiful parkway. It looks on the map, it looks like, oh, this is the way we can go, just right across the river, no problem. But what you've got on that parkway is you have a huge, over 1,000 senior citizen homes. And we use the parkway, there are 4 different entrances on the parkway, and we use that parkway to come out and to turn and go out to our lodge, to go out to all of the city facilities. There are no stoplights on there. So, but with the lack of traffic, pretty much, we are able to actually use that as the road that we need to use. So if you're going to put additional cars on there, which there definitely will be, and if you add trucks on that, you're going to have a lot of safety problems with the seniors that live on that parkway. I know that there's a need. I feel like there's a need for another bridge as well. Cross, I don't doubt that at all. I just think we need to take a look at taking it a little bit further west on 17. And you should probably take it even further west than where the new high school is going to be built. Because there's a new high school that's going to be built right across from the Walmart that's out there. And if you could get it past that, then that would add to the safety of where the high school intersection is as well. But I hope that there will be a lot of opportunity for public comment. I'm sure we will get a lot of public comment on it. And there were, actually, do we have any idea when that will happen? Public comments on
We're hoping that the policy committee will make the roadway public comment open at the next committee meeting.
the one
In November, yes.
So you said there was the difference in time. When is the time? When is it going to be?
Theirs is going to be, do I have it? 7:30? Okay,
At night?
correct, yes.
For DWRC.
Sorry, just to help you avoid some frustration later. The meeting on the 28th at 7:30 is the regular policy committee meeting, and they will see the report for the first time.
Okay,
So they don't know what's in it yet because they haven't received the report.
okay.
So they're not making any decisions in that meeting. We're asking as staff for the policy committee to initiate the start of a public comment. Will run for a month from that day. So at any time after that date, if they agree to send it out for public comment, for the next 30 days, you can write letters, and then the following policy committee meeting, which will be in January, there will then be a public hearing inviting the public to come and make comments, to submit letters, to do whatever else. So it's not like you have to make all your public comments at 7:30 at night on the 28th. That only begins the public comment period. And only if the policy committee agrees to begin the public comment period. If they decide, no, they want the report changed before that public comment period, then it won't even start on that day. It might be deferred until January. So don't panic about the 28th. Just the start. There will be 30 days of opportunities to comment, and then there will be a further hearing at the January policy committee meeting where you can come, and that will, I think, be at 6 p.m.
All right, quick pause. We're kind of straying from the Robert's rules of the public comments, but no, that's okay, But could you please leave your email with John so that he can send you the links or files that you requested for that?
Absolutely. We
All right.
really appreciate that.
Did you have anything further to add?
Just at the beginning, when we were talking about the bus transit report and how they the way the route went, is there any idea of including a way that people can look at their cell phones and see where the next bus is?
I think they have an app already, right?
Yeah,
Fredericksburg.
there is the Fred app for that.
Merrimack.
There is for the current bus, but
I would suspect it would be incorporated.
yeah.
The route shout.
Yeah.
Crowd shout.
How is that spelled?
It can only get better.
Thank you.
And I hope that you will consider looking at a route for the best.
Thank you.
Oh.
Anybody else in attendance that would like to make a public comment? Anybody else online that would like to make a public comment? Any correspondence that came in the last 45 minutes? Okay, go for it.
There is a wonderful, I just found it, just recently, a wonderful survey for transportation for staff. And they have on that, they have a regular survey questions you can add, but they also have a map, which is very similar to the map that was used for redistricting when we looked at different options for districts. And you can drag down, if you see an area that has a safety problem, but if it's just the day of your street, you can pull it down, you can comment. If somebody agrees with that, they like it, they can dislike it. So it's a really good opportunity for regular citizens to be able to get their input on problems.
Thank you. We are at future agenda items, and there are none. And we have no meeting in December. So our next meeting is going to be on Wednesday, January 11th, 2023. And we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Rupert, let's so move.
Moved by Rupert. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. See you in a couple months. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
New Year.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Meeting here.